In this episode, I had one of the best conversations I've ever had since I started this channel. And I haven't had a lot of conversations, so you should understand that when I say this is one of the best conversations, I truly and sincerely mean it. This conversation is touches on a lot of things, and you would understand why it stretched to almost 2 hours. So in this conversation, I wouldn't want you to skip any part of it. I'd want you to watch throughout, listen to the insights that my guests share, and you'd understand why I say that this is truly one of the best conversations I've had on this channel. So without much ado, let's get into the intro, and then when we're back, we head straight into the conversation. For me, having this conversation with you, I know you for I've known you for I think a lot of years for now, and for the sake of my viewers and those listening to the session, who are you? So just tell us who you are.
All right. Thank you very much for the opportunity. I'm very glad to be here with you, and I want to thank you once again. Basically, you can call me Mo Sallaam. I'm a graduate student at the University of Belgrade here in Serbia. My area in geopolitics and international policy. And basically, I like to play football, and I'm also a public speaking coach. So
Oh, interesting.
that is what I will say for now.
Okay, that's interesting. I think we call it soccer here.
It's football.
Yeah, America is the only place they call football soccer, and then the foot. How do we call these guys?
No, I
Because
mean, but ideally it was called soccer, even the Brits called it soccer, but the language went through a series of,
modification.
uh, yes, exactly. But the appropriate one is football, please. We don't have any soccer anywhere except where you live.
So I attended this retreat couple of months ago. I think that was 2 months ago, and then the moderator was speaking, and he said football, and then the whole room it was a mixed breeze. Like we had Americans, we had, and there was this Nigerian girl who shouted, "The real one, the
The real one.
real one," and everyone started laughing, man. Oh, okay, interesting. So I think growing up, I grew up. I think both of us grew up from the same part of the country where we're coming from. Originally, I'm from Ghana. You're from Ghana. We both grew up from the northern part of Ghana, right? Albeit I grew up from a different part of the northern sector. You also grew up from the northern sector. But this conversation we're about to have, we've had this conversation prior, and we've both agreed that conversation should be had around these things, right? And that would lead me to the first thing I would want to ask you. What do you think is the prevailing um, circumstance right now as it stands? What is the most pressing issue that needs to be addressed in the northern region?
Well, currently, I think the North has a lot of problems. We're talking about education, quality healthcare. We're talking about roads, agriculture, and potable drinking water. We have serious problems currently. But most of these things are left to the politicians, to policymakers, and policy implementers. But for me personally, if we're going to dissect the issue, I would leave the education aspect to the people who are in that area. And also, but collectively, for me personally, if I was going to rank our pressing need as the North, as they call it, generally, I would say is the access to quality education, which is a problem currently, access to quality education. We have a lot of schools currently that are under-resourced. We have a lot of schools that are either just non-existent. It is existing on paper, but if you go to the school, it's either the students have gone to the farm or the teacher is not there or they are sitting under trees, especially in the hinterlands and the villages. And also in the north there, we lack the adequate facilities. We are living in the 21st century where education starts very early. You have people who are young, but they're already introduced to computers, they are introduced to IT, they are introduced to vocational skills that are very important. But if you look at the North, even though we have some of the best schools in the country, Ghana School, Tamil School, St. Charles and Co., and my alma mater, Yedi Senior High, which is one of the best schools in the country. But nonetheless, we still have serious challenges, especially rural education. The point is to bridge the gap between the South and the North. And I think most of our problems stems from that educational gap. So if you're going to bring all the problems to perspective, you're going to have where it's like a pyramid. It starts with the pre-independence era, where we were left behind for 100 years before formal education was introduced in the North. So it affected our infrastructure, it affected our human resource in terms of skilled personnel, it affected our industry in terms of factories, in terms of labor. And so I think education is the backbone of our problems. And if we tackle it very well, especially education has also affected the quality of lives of the people, where if people are not able to go to school, they tend to some of these social vices we may talk about in the subsequent questions that you may ask.
Um, so I hear you, right? I understand you, and I completely agree with you, right? But here's where I have a different perspective. I So unlike you who had your education in the northern sector, like you mentioned the Yendi Senior High School, I was stationed at the central region in Ghana, right?
Wow.
Also, I would describe it, as a hinterland area because it was more like a rural area in one of central region's sub areas, right? And I think the gap you mentioned can be assimilated to what I experience also in the central region, right? So although I agree with you that education probably has been or is the biggest probably the biggest problem or canker we have right now in the northern sector, but I would argue that education is probably the biggest problem we have as a nation and not just the northern region. That is
Yeah,
one.
I mean that is valid. Is
That
valid.
is, yeah. The second point is I also realized that um, maybe you would need to expound on this, but I also realize that when it comes to education, probably there are several forms of education, right? And for us, I think the culture has probably suppressed. Well, we could agree to disagree or disagree to agree. For me, I feel like the culture has really suppressed education as it should enlighten us to some ways, which to some degree I know you disagree with. And I know you disagree with because I know where you stand on that. But also it has probably not given us the best that um it has probably not wiped out some thoughts that sits deep within, our thinking. What would you say about that?
No, you see, there's a delink between the things we are talking about. There's an area of convergence, which I agree. The culture and how it affects our education system. I agree completely. But you have to isolate the issues in such a way that it will make sense to people who are watching from outside, people who are not within that system, people who are third parties. So if you look at our education system generally, let me give an example. Before formal education came to the North or even to our part of the world,
Mhm.
even pre-independent era, in the 17th century, 18th century, the beacon of learning as a higher institution was in the North. You'll be surprised to note that the first university in West Africa, if you take out Timbuktu University, was in Yendi. It was called the Moli University. So the Moli University was the first higher education center in the whole of our, 14 basin.
Oh,
In that institution,
sorry, I don't mean to cut you. Where is it now? Where is it now? Does it still exist?
Moli is the university is in Yendi currently. but it has lost its touch with reality. It has been left to rot, especially after the German invasion in the late 18th century. The university is still there. When you go there today, you will see the remnants of what I'm talking about.
Is it operational?
It's not operational. It is more of informal now for what do you call it? Arabic studies and Islamic teachings. But
Wow.
it was the first institute of higher learning within the whole voting basin. You get it? What they were teaching then was carpentry, sophisticated oncology, before even pharmacy was standardized. Molly University was conducting serious surgeries, saving lives of people. In fact, the medicine industry of Molly University, the medical department of that university was one of the best. People traveled all the way from Nigeria, Burkina Faso, the whole of the Sahel to Molly for the herbal medicinal, treatments that was meted out. And they were teaching people. That, not just that, there was art, poetry, and today that we call it music, dance forms. This was one of the best departments you could find, because if you look at the culture of that era, in the Dagbon culture, the dance forms are there, the music forms are there, and then there's that sort of cultural, significance that is attached to it. But today, if you look at the dance forms, the music forms of our culture, it is nowhere to be found. You get it? It is not standardized. People are talking about piano and how do you call it? The violin. Before piano or before the violin, we had what we call gonje. This was taught in Moreland University. People could play various instruments that were very sophisticated. So the informal aspect of our education is there. And then the formal aspect is there. Our culture does not in any way limit our education. What I would argue is that when the colonizers came, when the imperialists invaded, especially the Germans, when they invaded in the 18th century, and the Battle of Adibo happened and we lost that war, Yendi was razed to the ground. Most of this was lost, and for the fact that our ancestors did not start these writing forms, in the sense that the documentations were, as we have it today, either written down in books, to be accessed by the future generations. We don't have any record of these things, substantive records of these things, but there are still remnants. You can still find some of the art forms, some of the sophisticated pottery things they did there, and it's still in existence. You can still find the institution itself is still there. Right now, it is not because they raised the whole place to the ground. You can find, some semblance of, the reconstruction and all that. So it is there. I agree with you completely. But our culture does not in any way limit us, because we had that education, before. But the standardization of what we call formal education is the problem we have today. They taught us that our herbal medicine is juju, or it is not scientific. And so for that matter, we should abandon it. When people were conducting complicated surgeries without anesthesia, so-called anesthesia, but we had herbs that could, one way or the other, ease the pain of people. When orthopedic surgeons were in that institution assembling bones of people from your spine all the way to your limbs. Bro, this was how sophisticated it was back then. But now we have a standardization of education. And so when you hear education, everyone is talking about going to school for 7 years, 8 years, going to the university, having a master's and a PhD, and now you are educated. So I agree with you that in some form, it limits in a way, but we've had a system that catered for our needs as a society, not just even the arts and everything, but scientifically. So I agree, but this is something that people need to know. And because we have abandoned these forms of education, the formal education, the vocational and technical skills, and everyone now wants to go to school, formal school, get a degree and all that. That is why many people are jobless, and people tend to do certain things that are untoward. So I agree, but I also disagree in a way.
Okay, okay, that's totally comprehensible. You did mention that for 100 years, right? We when I say he, I mean you and I, from where we're coming from, like for 100 years, there was we're deprived of education, if you put it like that. But you and I would also agree that for I don't know for how long, but for many years, there's also been an intentional effort, to bridge that gap, and
Yes,
that was what was done. I think during Nkrumah's time, where education was made free, at least to a certain level, and that's been continuous till I think President Kufuor came and implemented F Cube, and then we have free education and all that. And now the current president is planning of making the tertiary, at least for the first years,
yes, yes,
yeah,
yes.
for free. Right. So you'd agree that there's been an intentional effort to bridging that gap, and these measures have been taken. Why do we still have a huge population of us, not having bridged? Why is there still that deficit?
You see, this is a very good question.
Hmm.
It's a serious conversation. I always tell people that generational problems cannot be solved within the time frame that we're looking at it. It will take time. For example, the first educated elite in the north, that was just some 60 years ago, bro. It is not long ago.
Okay.
You see, it's not that long ago. Look at it. It is still the same generation. Imagine when the likes of Ibrahim Mahama,
Hmm.
lawyer Ibrahim
Oh yeah,
Mahama,
yeah.
you're talking about what's his name? Yakub Tali. You're talking about people, the Sanarina. You're talking about people. Bro, this was just like some 60, 70 years ago we are
I
talking
mean,
about.
most of them are still alive, right?
Most of them are still alive. You get it. So we should not create an impression that it has been so long and we're still, not able to catch up. You first of all have to realize that it's a systemic issue. I agree. Kwame Nkrumah gave the 100-year scholarship to make education free in the North from basic school, make it compulsorily free for everyone, which is very important. But your grandfather didn't go to school. Probably your father did not. You get it. Maybe if he did, it was Makaranta or it was just basic school. You are most of us, what you need to understand is that our generation, most of us are either the first people to have had access to higher education or our fathers. So we are counting only two generations have had good access to education. And if you look at, we are the majority of the people today having everything at our disposal. But it takes someone who is educated, who knows the pros and cons of sending someone to school, to be able to send his kid to school. There are a lot of people who also assume that no, now there are no jobs. If they go to school, it's just going to be another. So I'll prefer that you go to the farm or go and learn carpentry or go and do this and do that. And we find ourselves in a situation where majority of people still do not want to go to school. But I believe that there's no one existing today who will, brush off the essence of formal education. Everyone is aware that the future is moving towards an era of literacy, not illiteracy.
Yeah.
And to be literate means that some way, somehow, you must necessarily have access to education. So I agree. But the point is that it may take us some years. And even now, there's serious effort going on to ensure that every child has access to quality education. We're talking about the Millennium Development Goals. We're talking about Sustainable Development Goals. And we have agencies and non-governmental organizations who are going into the villages, the hinterlands to ensure that even if it is just the one classroom, but at least there's someone in that community who is going to school. So I think we will get there, but the issues are multifaceted. There are social issues, there are economic issues as well, and there's also, we are not long ago, people believe that women should not go to school. They belonged in the kitchen. But at least I think that right now we are making strides. And I mean, we should be patient, but we should also be aggressive in the sense that we promote, conversations like this to ensure that the right things are done. But completely, I agree that some of the blame will have to be, on us too, as pioneers of, like myself. I am the second person in my family to have had access to higher education. I am a young person, bro. You can imagine, I'm the second person in my family to have access to higher formal education. So
Wow.
this is crazy if you look at it from that perspective. But if you look at people, bro, in the 16th, 17th centuries, people had professors in their family, people had doctors in their family. Their father went to school, their grandfather went to school. In fact, it was even their great grandfather who founded some school somewhere. You cannot compete. You can try, you get it. But the system itself would have to support you. You can do all that you can, but your environment also counts.
Okay, very good point. Fair point. I 100. We're on the same page on that, and we would come to that later, which would sound, I think, which we would agree to disagree to, because there will be a lot of controversies going forward on this conversation, right? Which would come to. But you also mentioned that when you look at what we currently face, which is, I think the majority of it is thinking, right? Even today, people still think that when you go to schools, there are no jobs. Like, why do we have this thinking? Is it, why do we have this thinking at all? I mean, I don't want to apportion blame to anyone, but why do you think we have this thinking? Why does it exist?
Okay, so this has colonial remnants. I'm a fan of history, and I always refer to history to make my point. The reason why people believe that the purpose of education is to have jobs
Mhm.
is the system the colonial administration, instituted for us. When they brought this whole administrative system, the point of you, a black man, going to formal school was to learn how to read, write, come sit down on a desk, respond yes, sir, no, sir, all day.
Mm.
You were not taught to work in a factory. You were not taught to manufacture anything. You were not taught to invent anything. You were not taught to think critically, to do something for yourself. You were taught to obey regulations and rules and to do as you are told. So for generations, our education system has been training people to find jobs and not educating people to be independent thinkers, to be able to do something for themselves. The purpose of our education system is go to school, finish, find a job somewhere, make ends living, get a wife, marry, have kids, and die. That is it. And so it is the colonial system of education that we have inherited. And for some reason, for over 60 years now, we have not been able to shed this bad system off. Now you have people going to school thinking that if I finish, I'm not going to get a job. Why is this your thinking? So already the person has already failed 50%. His thinking is that he's going to school to come out for someone to employ him.
Mhm. Mhm.
That is not the purpose of education, is to become an independent critical thinker, to be able to do something for yourself. If you want to work for someone, that is good. But the purpose of the education should not be to come out, go and sit somewhere to be a 9 to 5 clocker, responding to emails and doing mundane work till you reach 60 and retire and die. So that is the historical aspect of it. Now, if you look at the system that we want to build for ourselves, if you do a comparative analysis of countries, advanced countries, take China, for instance, take Japan, for instance, take India, for instance. If you look at China, now, if they have kids in school, it is more of creativity, it is more of, more technical in nature than just book. You have kids who are already learning how to assemble products. We have kids who are already ready to, make how to clothing, even to assemble phones, even to do all these kinds of things. You and I know that your sister and my brother in kindergarten are singing Ayayele every single day. In fact, if you are going to do a comparison, they know nothing. The second point is that our education system is not tailored. It is too general in nature. Look, we spent time I was very old before I even got to school. So me, I didn't sit in kindergarten. I sat there for like one term and they moved me to P1. But the current system that we have people sitting in kindergarten, nursery, 1, 2, 3, then to primary, 1, 2, 3, up to 6, then to junior high, 3 years, senior high, 3 years, go to college for 3 years or go to the university for 4 years. Assuming our education system was tailored, the moment you finish primary, the junior high should be specialized. Like in Europe here, some of the schools are very specialized. The moment you finish basic school, junior high, they call it shredding school. The shredding school that is middle school, we have automobile schools that you can go to. We have technical schools you can go to. We have IT schools you can go to. We have private schools like law and those, politics schools you can go to. That is how it is. You don't go to senior high school again to do all these 11, 10 courses and now come and say that I'm going to do him. And even the humanities, it is too broad. Either you are focusing on policy or you are focusing on whatever. No, just go and do information studies and political science. Do everything. If you go into the sciences, you have to still go and study. If you are doing medicine, which is perhaps specialized, pharmacy, which is somehow specialized. If you are doing, the rest are not specialized. So you have people going in there thinking that after my 4 years, I've studied political science and English, is thinking, where can I work? If I find government agency or, I can go to international organization, you are not going to get a job. You are not. So automatically you are in line to fail. And the last aspect of it is the reality. There are no jobs. They are not. The unemployment rate is so high that you cannot even hide it. Currently, over 2 million Ghanaians at the employability age are unemployed. 2 million young Ghanaians are unemployed. This is why won't we have social vices? And so if someone who is rational is also thinking, people are going to school, they are not getting jobs, why should I go to school? He would prefer to go and do kaya than to, go to school. First of all, they think it's a waste of time. But if we have a mind shift, if we have a rethink of the education system, not to just go to school, come and find jobs, but as a way of getting enlightenment, building the next generation of critical thinkers, builders, innovators, the system will not change until we reshape our education system in that manner to build thinkers, innovators, and builders rather than just employers. The system will not change.
Wow. You've spoken extensively. I agree with a lot of things you've said, right? There's one clarity that I want to get with so that we are on the same page. So with your last point about the reality of no jobs, right? I agree that well, to the statistics, I can't speak to it, right? However, what I need clarity on is it that there are no jobs or there are no qualified people for the jobs available, right? Because this is a debate that's been going on for quite a very long time. And I ask this I ask this on the fact that when I was working in Ghana, I worked for this company where we had one of our products, more like a service, was such that you accumulated a number of jobs and then you push those jobs out. So every day we had new jobs coming in and then you had to push out, right? Sometimes you could have those jobs there for a month and well, my job was only to push those jobs out and not find candidates. So I wasn't able to tell whether it was that they didn't have the right candidates for the right job or there were just a lot of qualified people that they were
They,
confused as
they,
to
they don't
who
know
to
who to
select.
pick.
Exactly, which I hardly doubt that
It's
might be the case.
improbable, perhaps.
Yes.
So let me get that clarity from you. Is it that there are no jobs, or the people there just don't have the qualities to have those jobs?
Two things can exist at the same time. They are all valid, and I'll take it one by one. You know, before I answered the question, the foundation I laid was that the kind of graduates we are training for the kind of jobs, those jobs are non-existent.
Mm.
The DEX employers we are training in our schools, those jobs do not exist anymore. So we are training people to just be unemployed. So for those people, they will say that there are no jobs. They have qualifications. You know, like 20, 30 years ago, all you need to do was to have a degree or a college certificate, and you are a hot cake. You get it. But the system has changed. And the problem that we are facing today is that the graduates we are training are not fit for the 21st century jobs that we have
Mm.
currently.
Mm.
The jobs are not just about qualification, it's about skill, it's skill oriented. It's about the ability to adapt, to think, to do something. You are not just going to sit there to receive orders to print and fax things and respond to emails and attend meetings and have breakfast and all those things. A lot of things have been left to the employees to think and do things. Let me give you an example. Right now, we have a lot of jobs that are automated.
Mhm.
Now, clerics, people who sit down, type letters and everything, within a click of a button, I can write a lot of letters without even needing an assistant. I can automate ChatGPT, like integrate systems to respond to my emails. I can integrate AI into systems that can isolate emails. Like, so I can put some keywords in some emails. If it comes and it is urgent, it's important, it's work, the AI will isolate those things. If you have Calendly, it will remind you. So you don't need your assistant or whatever to call you and tell you that, boss, you have an email. How do I respond? You are going to have a pop on your phone. Calendly will remind you that at this point in this, when you have a meeting on this, and that, it's about this and this. If you even are lucky to be someone who is computer savvy, you can integrate AI into your work routine that can even update you. So assuming, like I was coming for this interview, I put in there, I'm attending this and this on this and this. This is the topic. And the AI will give me, okay, expect this and that. This is the conversation. This is how you should approach it, and this and that. I don't need a personal assistant to brief me anymore.
Mm.
So someone who thinks that he is a business administration assistant, you know, he wants to be following some big man around, going to meetings, taking minutes of meetings, you are unemployed automatically. You get it? So that aspect is there. The jobs, the 21st century jobs are a lot, but we are still having a 20th century employees seeking 21st century jobs. You are going to know, you are not going to get the jobs. And the second aspect of it is that when you look at the kind of jobs that we put out, so most of it is about, you know, how do you call, like, you are not just going there to, like I said, to receive orders and do certain things. You are supposed to work, like serious working. You are supposed to do things. You are supposed to report. You are supposed to do stuff. This reminds me of what Elon Musk did a couple of weeks ago, that they are sending emails to all the bureaucrats that list 5 things that you have done this week.
This week, okay. I saw
List
that.
5 things you have done successfully this week. Bro, it's a disaster. This is even America we are talking about.
Mm.
People just sit in offices, do absolutely nothing, and they take money. But the jobs that are required today, you need to be able to think for yourself. You need to be able to do certain things for yourself, in the sense that the employer is not just going to feed you. The employer is going to give you a problem and you solve it. That is the jobs. And that brings me to the last aspect of it. We lack that training in our schools. If we are not training those graduates to be able to compete in the 21st century, market, how do we expect them to compete? Example, you are putting a job out. You need a customer service as agent. All right, you are supposed to respond to people, answer calls, talk to people about their company and whatever, respond to problems and all that. Being fluent is not the solution to that. Someone thinks he speaks better English, so he can be a customer service and that kind of thing. But today, we are in the world of social engineering. You need to be able to know people, to be able to retain customers in your office. If you are not able to have that human relations skill, how to sustain conversations, how to elicit information from people, how to engage people. And these things are not on a certificate too.
No.
You see, and you need experience for that. You need to be able to have a year or 2 or 3 years of working with people to build that. Your certificate cannot give you that. You can even go and do an MBA or let me say a master's in marketing or communication. They won't teach you that. You need field experience. And also another thing is that I almost forgot about it, is that people downplay internships and volunteer work. You can build a lot of experience through these things. I know nowadays the companies exploit a lot of young people, but that notwithstanding, we should also take it serious. Just build your profile. And when I was in the university, I did everything. I was doing volunteerism, I was doing internships here and there, I was all over the place, just trying to fit, because where I came from, nothing of that sort exists there. So I found a big market for me to do certain things that people would think is not necessary. It was necessary for me. I go to a program and it is just boring. Like, I get up, I ask the people, can I do an informal session, keep the people, that kind of thing. I'm talking to people. I'm asking them what is their impression, what do they expectation. Before you realize, I'm building a network of people, I'm building my confidence, I'm speaking to people. No one asked me to do those things. But some people just even go to conferences and events, they don't even write anything. They sit, listen, and go out, and it is out. And so it's a multifaceted issue that we cannot have, the time is not enough for. It's a whole conversation we can have. But I agree. But the bottom line is the graduates we are training are not fit for the jobs we have currently. So you can go to LinkedIn. There are 1,010,000 jobs there. Some even reposting the jobs for like 2 months. The skill they need, the experience they need, the employees don't have it.
Wow. Interesting. I think one point you did mention that I really want to hammer on is the fact that internships are downplayed, especially in our part of the world, like really, really, really underestimated. I I cannot emphasize that enough, right? And I say this, having moved to the US right now, and you realize that for almost everyone I know, everyone in my network, at least for my entire cohort, everyone is expected to have an internship, right? One, not only does it give you the relevant experience you mentioned, the connections and all that, but also it enhances your employability in that, such that if you have the chance to impress the employers where you had your internship, you have a likelihood of being retained as a full-time employee there, right?
Exactly.
That is one, which is very, very missing. Like it's missing in our system in Ghana. Like absolutely missing, right? Because I like you, we're in the same university, and for me, I also felt that this was it was a gold mine, like a plethora of opportunities that you could literally just walk to it, and then you have it, and then you are tapping into those resources and all that, which I think that we as Africans or we as Ghanaians can do a better job at, propagating the need to have those better internships. I don't know, but I started to say that it was because of that reason that the national service was implemented. I,
Exactly.
I said I don't know, but I'm just thinking that it's probably one of the reasons that why it was implemented. Um, I mean, there are issues with the national service scheme that we can go into later on, but but you also did mention that, at least from the earlier part of the conversation, you mentioned how the institutions are meant to train you to think critically and make decisions for yourself. In your case, you're able to even before you left the university, you were able to make good use of the university such that you were able to join groups, become a leader, like made so many connections. Beyond connections, you made huge impacts in the university campus, and even till date, remnants of your existence in the university still exist,
Exactly.
which is huge and a big win for the brotherhood that is established. Why? Why you? Why did you get that opportunity to do that? But okay, so granted, we have about 10,000 students in the University of Ghana, right? Out of the 10,000 students, granted, I know it's about 40,000 or something, but let's just peg it at 10,000. Out of the 10,000 students, fact check me on the statistics I'm going to mention or throw out there, but I can say that 5% of those um, students may not even utilize these resources, regardless of where they're coming from. Why do you think that is the case?
You see, so this is another question that is very difficult to answer in the sense that there is the policy aspect of it, the failure of our governance, system, and also the deficiency in our institutions. And also the last part is people's inability. I don't want to sound condescending, but we are not equal. People are different. Somebody's mindset towards school is completely different from your mindset. That's why we have people who are average people. We have people who are, high performers. That is how nature is. So your failure to take opportunities where they are could be because one, the system has a problem, or your institution that opportunity do not even exist, or you yourself is inept in the sense that you don't even see it's an opportunity. So there are three things. Now, one, the governance issue, the policy issue. Our schools are very far away from industry. They are not connected to the industry. We lie to ourselves that we do national service, but it is at random. They just post people to anywhere. It is not in tandem with what you're doing. It is not in tandem with your professional background. It is just go and do anything and go. You see, serve the nation, whether they send you to where you can do what is the name? Consumer science, and they will send you to Abosunkai to go and do whatever they want you to do there.
Go in direct traffic, literally, like.
You get it. We understand that it is about serving the country, which is, I love service. In fact, I nearly joined the military. I am very happy. I love my country, and I will do anything to serve the country. But it has to be structured in the sense that it helps the country and the people. So we have the policy aspect of it is a failure in the sense that one, in other jurisdictions, in other countries, you have government agencies funding departmental research. Like in the US, for instance, Brookings is a very big institution that government agencies fund their research. If you go to Harvard, for instance, you have government agencies that are funding some departments to conduct research, to have students from those departments go into that field and work. They even have assistants, assistantships for those specific, faculties and departments that is directly linked with the industry. So you are not studying in vacuum. If I was in the political science department of the University of Ghana, I was expecting that the Foreign Affairs Ministry of Ghana should have an interest in the political science department. The local governance ministry should have an interest in the political science department, because in the political science department, people do research, and you need that research to be able to guide government policy. Assume that the local government is giving political science department 50 million cedis every year for research, to fund their research. And the policy analyst at the political science department will conduct research and say that we have a deficiency in this system, that system, and that system in the local governance structure. This is how we're going to solve it. It has become incumbent on the department to produce groundbreaking research that will guide policy. Now, they also have the most intellectual, forefront of the country. You have students, you have professors. Students could even be used to do some of this research. Those same students could be, taken to those departments to guide that policy. There's nothing like that. You go to economics department, there should necessarily be a link between the department and some of the agencies of government. There's none. They don't fund anything. Look at Cocoa Board, for instance. Cocoa Board should be funding the agriculture department of the University of Ghana to be able to study. We are living in the era of agribusiness. They should have interest in this, but there's none. So that the link between industry and academia is why the students don't have some of these opportunities. And now there's institutional deficiency. The institutions themselves or the universities are either not well equipped to take advantage of certain things, or they are not just interested. They just want you to graduate and send your problems away. You are annoying them. You get it. It's only in the university that, like in our part of the world, that a lecturer is like you are annoying. When I traveled, that I got to understand that something is wrong. Some professors feel that the students are annoying them. Look, in some places, the kind of relationship you have with your professor, it is so intimate that look, I was surprised. That my professor sent an email and ended and started with "Dear Mo." The dear I received, bro, I felt so happy. At some point, I thought he was raising me, bro, because the dear was too plenty in the emails. At some point, I felt that, bro, that is the kind of relationship we have with some people. You can send an email for 2 weeks, you won't get a response. You can't even go to their offices. They have office times. They are not there. It's a problem. You get it. And I don't also blame them, because the professor is teaching a class of 200 students, 300 students, full JQB, bro. It doesn't make sense. 200 people cannot be emailing a professor at the same time, bro. He's not a robot. So the problems are many. You get it. And the last aspect of it too is that some of the students too do not care. They are just as nonchalant as anything else. They don't seek opportunities where they are. And I agree that there are challenges. The challenges can mask some of your efforts. Like I said, you can work as hard as you want. If the system will frustrate you, it will frustrate you. Sometimes it takes a little bit of a system push or a new environment to change your perspective and to guide you. But that notwithstanding, some of the students are also just brazenly lazy. They are not interested in anything, like how on earth are you a university student still learning how to write a CV? You are a national service student still learning how to write a CV. It is only when they are in level 400 or when they are doing national service that they now start calling people, oh, bro, can you help me draft my CV or cover letter? This is a disaster. From high school, you should know these things. That is why I'm saying that the high schools are not specialized. If someone was in high school doing, automobile or doing agriculture or something, the person is already industry oriented. But your point is that I'm going to go to university, finish and get a job. So when he's exiting, he's preparing his employability, apparatus. He needs a CV, he needs and the CV, there's nothing inside, only his national service. So some people are not just serious, and I'm going to be as honest and blatant as possible. Some people are not serious, and you cannot blame the system entirely, but also people have to take personal responsibility.
Honestly, this last point, you hit the nail, right? Because I keep telling people, like, and sometimes when you tell them, like sometimes I just want to be frank, especially depending on the relationship I have with the person. I just tell you, this is what I know. I've realized about your energy is that you're not serious. And then they get offended that why would you say I'm not serious? And I'm like, yo,
Look,
just
let me even give you an example. Look, when you were in school, look at the things you were doing. Look at the programs you were organizing. You attend. People are not just interested. Even people that you are closer to, that you would think that they will take opportunity, people are not interested.
Yeah.
You see, you are a walking example of, people that you were doing these things that you were even close to, they were not interested. And later they want help from you to do certain things. So you have to be honest with them.
I totally agree with you, Brad. I totally agree with you. Like this is just I feel like I feel like you've picked a chapter from my last recently launched book, and then you just speaking on it. Because see, I think it's about time that we it's great to apportion the blames to the institutions and the policies and all that. But I think a majority, like you said, not to sound condescending, but I think a majority of the thing sits with us, right? Because it was you decided that no, I had to take this thing into my hand and work on it and all that. And I keep telling people, see, no one is coming to save you if you don't want to save yourself. Like
Exactly.
we've moved past that stage. Like we've moved past that stage where they keep babysitting you. Like no, like now we passed that stage. Man, like, oh my goodness. Like, yo, oh my
It's
goodness.
crazy. You cannot. It's sad. It's sad actually.
Um, One thing that also shocked me when I got here was, like you said, the student lecturer relationship is amazing, like amazingly different from what we experienced back in Ghana. And so for me, it was really alien to have to relate to, the professor in the way I saw the other colleagues,
I'm
relating.
telling you, I was so happy.
It was alien. Like, and until date, I still have some some residuals of that, kind of fear to approach, a lecturer. Tell the person, oh, I feel like you marked this thing wrong, but I think it's correct. People like students do it here. You're like, yo,
You are signing your death warrant.
yes, that's it.
It's like you want to get zero.
You, Magdi, you are telling me no. So I mean, like, I think that is another thing that we should look at. And the last point you also mentioned about the relationship between the academia and an industry should be strengthened. And I think one of your guys, I wouldn't say your guys, I think when um the political science lecturer, I've forgotten his name, was appointed to, I think, is it
I
Gapoha?
think it's Professor Jampo
Professor Jampo, true.
at
When
the
he was,
Ghana Shippers Authority.
yeah, Ghana Shippers Authority. Oh, that's Shippers Authority. Okay. When he was appointed to Ghana Shippers Authority, I think this conversation also sparked up where Paul Adomotri was, saying that it should be fun. And if not, we have more like a brain drain, but this one in terms of academia to industry, which, I totally agree with. Let's shift the dynamics of the conversation a bit and move to DEI, right? We've identified that something is wrong with the system, right?
Definitely.
Yes, something is wrong with the system. We also know, in fact, we know the solutions to these problems. We do, right? One of the things that has raised a lot of conversations and controversies has been the implementation of DEI or the dissolution of DEI. Let me just pick.
DI is interesting. I'm listening.
Yes, I want to pick your where do you stand? I mean, I don't know if we should polarize this conversation between whether we should go for DEI or we shouldn't go for DEI, or where do you stand on that?
So, for someone who is a minority in many ways,
Hmm.
I can say I'm a minority
Yeah.
in many ways because one, I'm black, I'm African, I'm a northerner, well, I'm a Muslim. I'm a minority in everything, you know. So I
You're
can
a man.
understand.
You're a man. Being a man
I'm
is
a
not.
man. Yes, a minority, yes. Yeah, we are minority. So I can understand clearly the issue of DEI and also affirmative action. But in this, where I am on this conversation is, I remember when we were in level 400 in the University of Ghana, I took a course in gender studies. And it was our HOD who was teaching this course, Dr. Mami Jando, a very passionate feminist. And, so she took the course personal. And as a creative and also as someone who is, I'm somehow controversial in a way. I took it to her, just to, stimulate the conversation and make the class interesting. So I was always the class devil, trying to, punch holes into some of the feminist arguments and affirmative action and all that. This conversation started there. But when it comes to DEI,
Mhm.
there are two things. One, I am not against giving opportunity to minorities where it is duly deserved. I'm not against that. I think it only strengthens the institutional structure in the sense that representation is very important. And also, as a policy guy, let me take this from a policy perspective. As a policy guy, representation is very important. If you don't understand the demography of people or a constituency or an entity, you may not be able to, formulate policies that could best, tackle those institutions or those constituents or those, entities or those people. One, if you have, let's say, we have a company, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we deliver service. And in this company, we're all Africans. And we're doing something about, let's say it's a food business. We are all Africans. And we are selling our food, let's say, in New York City. Perhaps maybe our interest is to sell to people like us.
Mm-hmm.
You see, maybe food, African food, and what have you, and all that. That is on a surface level. To look at it that, oh, this is our thing. We don't want to engage any, this is us. We're doing our own thing. You get it? Some people can justify it to also mean that this is my company. This is my ideals. I don't want any black person in there, whether you are qualified or not. And that is where we have a problem. Justification of what it means to be doing your thing. And as to taking it collectively as a society. One, how do you feel if a white person walks into your bar and it is all black people? Will the person feel welcome? Will the person think that this is a place that I belong? Flip it. Assuming, the segregation era where black people had their own things, white people had their own things, and we are now trying to integrate, in the 60s and 70s and 80s, and it's fully integrated, but we still have remnants of these things. I'm just giving open points so that you can appreciate all the ends of it, whether it is about race, it's about religion, or it's about gender. It's the same thing like in a construction company. We are doing heavy lifting. If I'm the manager, maybe my bias would think I need to hire men because it involves some heavy lifting. It is a heavy thing. It is heavy stuff. It is dangerous stuff. I don't need a woman in there you get it. That is the rationalization of why I may not need DI in my construction company. Maybe if I need a woman in my company, perhaps a secretary or perhaps not a field operator. That is maybe somebody's thinking. You get it. If you also walk to a salon, it is almost 90% sure that you are not going to find a man in the salon. If you find a man in there, he's a barber. That is a joint salon where the man is barbering. And today, if you find a man in there, there's 99% chance that he's either gay, transgender, or is queer. These are realities that we have to, be honest about. So these are open truths that people need to understand when we're having the conversation of DEI and affirmative action. Now, do you blame the salon owner for not employing men, or the construction, mayor for not employing females in the name of DEI just for representation? There are 3 men at work. There should also be 3 women or 2 women. So if you look at it from that perspective, you will find that the conversation is very difficult. But if we bring it to the issue of substance, competence, then we can have a conversation. I don't have a problem with a woman being a pilot. I don't have a problem with a woman being a sailor. I don't have a problem with a woman being my driver. I don't have a problem with a man, being I don't. Trust me, 100%. If you go to a barber shop and it's a woman, bro, you will think twice before you sit on that chair. You may even ask, are you sure? It is our inward biases that we have these feelings. It's our own bias. Sometimes our biases are justified. Sometimes they are over, it's born out of fear. You get it? So the conversation about DEI is difficult. But for me, the bottom line is when it comes to substance, about competence, I believe the competent person must get the job. I don't really believe in let's put measures in place to ensure that our company is reflective of every demographic. The best person, the competent person must get the job. But in other circumstances, you need that kind of dynamic, but it's not in all circumstances. You need that DEI in situations where we are talking about policy that would affect people. You need people who understand those situations in there. Not because they are not competent, they are also competent, but they also reflect the idea of inclusivity and diversity so that people can feel welcomed, people can feel that they belong. It creates an atmosphere for everyone to be, how do you call it? To be able to express themselves very well. Imagine you are the only Black guy in a company and the higher ups, there's no someone you can talk to in a way that the person can understand your predicaments. Trust me, you are going to face problems. Every demographic has its own problem. Look, if you're in a company, you are the only woman, you are not going to feel free to be talking to the males. Some issues have to be spoken, with your own counterparts, like the boys conversation we can have. And you cannot have it with women. That is the social aspect of it. If you have a problem and your manager is a woman, trust me, you cannot really open up to certain things, vulnerability and all those things. You feel these are our biases. So in certain instances, you need that kind of diversity and inclusivity to ensure that people feel welcome, people feel, belong, people feel free to express themselves. But the conversation has been hijacked by political neocons, either on the conservative side or the democratic side. And they've forgotten about the fundamentals of DEI, how it started. It was supposed to give opportunities to minorities who are underprivileged. But both sides have blown it out of proportion. The conservatives are saying that they are now hiring people who are not qualified because of DEI. And the liberals are also just now blown the whole thing out of proportion, that even you have to care for the feelings of trees and everything, and even dogs have to be included and everything. It's a problem. We need to go back to the fundamentals of how it started. The idea was you look at the demographic of people that are underprivileged, that are underutilized, and ensure that they have the opportunity. An example is in Ghana, when we had a serious deficit of women who are not going to school, and we had the affirmative action in the universities, in the sense that every year the admission should have 60% women and 40% men. Within the span of 10 years, we equalize the numbers. And even now, the women are more than men in our universities, which is a fact. In your classroom, they're all, And another aspect of the conversation where we are not serious about it or we don't focus on it is to each with his ability. That is what I think the conversation should be. So if we are doing DEI and affirmative action, it should be tailored towards people and their, ability and skill set, not just random, just in the name of DEI. We have to have. Now look at Netflix movies. Look at all the movies that you see. There's going to be a gay guy. There's going to be an Arab guy. There's going to be a Chinese guy. There's going to be a confused, junkie in there. There's going to be a lesbian. Every movie now has to follow that criteria. If not, your movie will not sell. Why? So if you look at it broadly, it brings us to the conversation about normalization of things. So they will tell you that they want it to be shown so that the little girl who is gay or lesbian would know that it is normal for two women to be kissing on TV and everything. So she feels that this is not an abomination.
Wow.
You get it? So the conversation is delicate in a way, but if you understand the policy aspect of it, you realize that it is about politics. People are playing politics with it, but it has its own merit and also its demerit. It should be contextualized so that we can have the better of it.
Interesting. I like the perspectives you've and the unpolarization, if that is a word at all, because I think a lot of the conversation we've had is about the polarization, whether it is good or it is bad, and like you said, politics has hijacked the whole, situation and
Exactly.
alitered it, and I don't know if I'm this is what I'm thinking, right? Honestly, I don't know if I'm a fan of DEI or I'm not at all. Let me put it in context, right? This is what I think. If and I asked the question to someone we are mutual friend to, Mazu, right? So Mazu runs an organization where he, always tries to help startups and all that. But
Yes.
part of his I think he had a presentation a couple of days ago at the Imperial College of Business,
Of London, yes.
yeah, of London, the Imperial College of London. And then when he posted the images of those, the caption was that we should have we should have more opportunities for underprivileged folks so that they can all be part of this, higher learning and all that. My question to him was, do you think that opportunities should be provided to those who deserve it, or those who are on this on are those who are in the minority, right? And my thinking was, if I qualify, why should you give me that opportunity? Because um sorry, someone is vacuuming, so it's really making a lot of noise.
No, I can
Yeah.
understand.
So my question was, if someone, oh my goodness, this is if someone is qualified, why should you give why should you give a spot to someone because the person is on,
Or the person meets a statistic,
like, why should that be the case? Why can't you just give that opportunity to the person because the person is qualified? And it boxes me into thinking that, oh, I'm here not because I'm qualified, I'm here because I am part of a certain statistics. And so it means that I'm probably not worthy of being in the position I am, right? That is one. Two, the argument about having, diversity, inclusivity. There was this argument I listened to by Constantine, who is a social commentator in the UK. And the argument he made was, if you if you pick people based on, race, based on color, based on gender and all that, you can have two different people from different races who think the same, who act the same, who talk the same. You can have two different people from um different, let's pick whatever the parameters are, who would think the same, act the same. So in essence, you really not the essence of diversity.
and
Diversity
inclusivity
is
is missing.
preached, right? So and listening to those arguments, I'm like, I don't know if DI. I mean, rationally, like you mentioned, rationally, our own heuristics would tell us that, if I'm a foreman of a construction firm or what, there are certain jobs that I would reserve for certain types of people. I mean, this could be unfair biases, right? But then at the end of the day, if you look at the statistics, like you're saying, it would make more sense to have,
Exactly.
yeah, those heuristics for better decision making and for faster implementation. But if you were to
Exactly. And
if
for
you were to
productivity.
for productivity again, right? But if you were to say, okay, let's hold on, let's look for a Chinese guy to be part of the construction work. Let's look for a black guy so that he can carry the cement because he's strong and all that. It would delay our decision making. Even the quality of decisions would be very, very impaired, right? So I understand you, but this is the understanding I've also had for the past, how long I've been thinking about this, and you having to mention how we've polarized the whole issue and then bringing it back to context, to explain even from the beginning how it all started. And it's really insightful. I don't know if,
Even you see the example you are giving.
yeah,
I listened to Constantine because he's a satirist, he's a comedian, and a very an intelligent guy,
intelligent guy, yeah.
and he makes very solid arguments.
No.
To add to that, if you look, the problem with DEI is, you see, I believe that, like I said, substance is very important.
Hmm.
You can have DEI in substance, not just about color or race or gender or anything. The reason is that you can have a man who fights more for women than a woman could ever have.
Right.
So if you hire a woman in place of a man because you think it will bring the woman voice into the conversation, you've shot yourself on the foot, because there are men who champion even gender advocacy than women. You get it? So that is substance. Again, if you look at how they have polarized it, and also on the flip side, it's assumed that, and the reason why I don't like DEI in certain ways is that for people who have worked very hard, who have toiled very hard to be where they are looked down upon because they think they are not worthy of the position that they have because of DEI, which is very bad. People have worked, toiled their whole lives to get to some positions of power, to get to some positions of influence, and someone can sit and say it's a DEI hire. That is very unfortunate. And it is because of the polarization of it. We cannot do it wholesale like we have now, that at any point in time, even in company policies, there are DEI policies that companies must adhere to. If you don't, you are going to, people can sue you. You can get sued and lose a lot of money because they believe your company is either racist, or it is transphobic, or it is all the phobia they can associate with your company or your association, because they think that you are you neglect certain groups of people. You see, there are pros and there are cons to this, but generally, if you look at how DI has become, the cons outweigh the pros. Like the example you give about Mazu and the thing he posted. You see, there are some scholarships that are in themselves DEI policies for sub-Saharan African countries, for students from sub-Saharan Africa to get those scholarships. Those are DEI programs because they believe that you are underprivileged, you need that kind of opportunities. In education, there are quotas reserved for people with disability, people with other things. These are reasonable DEI policies because we believe in, how do you call it? We live in an era where we believe that we can only coexist, and your perspective may be different from my perspective. The uniqueness I bring to the table may be different from yours. Maybe I'm holding on to something. Imagine your interaction with the people that you have met who are not like you. You have learned a lot. Imagine if you were boxed in your own circle and your own, thinking. You've lost a lot. But now that you have access to that kind of wide, environment to learn different cultures and everything, it has contributed to your thinking. It has contributed to your, even the way you see things differently. Now you can do a comparative analysis of how you behave and how other people behave, what constitutes what they call progress. There are certain things like in Africa we do, and you go to Europe and you see it and you're like I came to Europe and I realized that why is it that people don't drop rubbish anyhow? Like they hold each other responsible. Like people are, the things that we do, some things are just common sense problems. You get it? And they hold, I came here to realize that they sell polythene to people. If I go to a store and I buy something, if I don't buy rubber, they won't put in a rubber for me. I have to buy it. So they are putting in your mind that they don't tolerate littering. They don't want their environment to be dirty with plastics everywhere. So if you buy it, you won't throw it away. But in Ghana, someone will buy this and ask for polythene to put this inside. Someone will go and buy pure water and want them to put it in a black polythene. He would remove it, drink it, and throw it away. So sometimes when you leave your environment, it can give you a different perspective of how things work. So DEI is a very complex issue. But for me, as a policy person, I'm looking at it from the policy perspective, how we can deal with it, and also the social aspect. But generally, the way it has been polarized, it is very bad currently. They have to restructure it, go back to the fundamentals, how it started, giving opportunities to people who are not necessarily minorities, but underrepresented. It is a remnant of, slavery and colonization. because people were how do you even pronounce that word? Disproportionately, disadvantaged. You get it? Let me give you an example. We hear conservatives make this argument all the time that Black people constitute the minority in America, but they commit majority of the crimes. You see, when they say it like this, it is so alarming. It puts something in your mind to think that Black people must be violent. Black people must be this. They are criminals. But the same argument, when you flip it, why is it that Black people commit most of the crimes? You know, it's not about crime. They are using a statistic of people who are arrested. You know, and the point is that Black people are over-policed. And so the over-policed population are the ones who are going to get the majority of arrests, vis-a-vis the people who are not policed. So that is how the facts work. And secondly, if you look at that same statistic, they tell you that the majority of people who are falsely accused of crimes are Black people in America. So imagine the minority are the people who often are accused wrongly of crimes. So that statistic tells you that the over-policing leads to the majority of the arrest, which brings the misleading statistic that Black people are the minority and commit most of the crimes.
Wow.
So it depends on the way you put the argument. And so people, when you listen to the DI argument, everyone and the way they want to put it, if you are not able to carefully flip the argument and look at it holistically, both in policy and also in the social realm, you may be making an argument that you do not fully understand.
Wow, interesting insights, man. Anytime I'm having a conversation with you, I not only do I listen just for the perspectives and all that, but I listen just because I enjoy the way one, your diction, two, the way you are able to make your argument sound and logical, starting from a premise, and then you land, and then the points are always sometimes really amazing. And I like that.
Thank you.
I think the final part of the conversation would be just be some touch on ethics, right? You and I recently, I think about less than a week ago, we had a conversation about this opioid crisis that BBC covered, right? And dissecting the issue has been really tough for me, right? Because on one side, no one is forcing anyone to buy drugs, right? I mean, no one is forcing anyone to buy drugs. On the other side, it is illegal to one sell drugs. Drugs here. I think
Yes, drugs.
let me define it. Opioid,
Yes.
right? It is illegal to sell those kind of, especially with the combination that is being sold and that is proliferated everywhere in Ghana, right? Especially in the northern part of Ghana. What is your take on that?
So I think I'll start with your premise that no one is forced to take drugs. You see, people are forced to take drugs. You'll be surprised. Not the forced in the sense that coerced by other people. People are forced to take drugs because of certain things. Certain things push people to take drugs. So it is not just a person will force someone to take drugs, but an entity or an occurrence or a situation can force someone to take drugs. So that is the first thing. And the reason why, I mean, logically, it doesn't make sense. Why would you be putting something in your body when you know it is dangerous for your own health, when you know it can kill you, when you know it will destroy your life? Logically, it doesn't make sense. But why? You see, it is the same argument we make when it comes to religion. And like they say that religion is the opioid of the masses. Why is what some people don't understand that quotation? Religion and drugs are equated in the sense that they are one is addictive, and also it can be rationalized at the beginning. It's like this. It's like a pyramid. The rationalization starts very big, so it makes perfect sense. But the more you go up, the more it's becoming lean and lean and lean and lean. Before you realize there's no rationalization for taking drugs. Let me explain. Now, if you look at the way the pyramid is at the beginning, okay, so you had an accident, your leg is broken, you go to hospital and they prescribe some drugs for you to take to ease the pain. Now the person can rationalize that, it's just for my leg, I'm taking it because it's painful. This person will take it for 1 week, 2 weeks, it's finished, you go back, even when the pain is gone, he's become used to that feeling of relaxed, like relaxation. He's become used to that feeling of high. It feels good to be numb, to be occasionally out of your senses in for a minute or two, to just be free. But it could start with a genuine reason. This person started taking drugs because of an accident, because of a broken limb, or because of something very rational. Now, that thing is gone. But once in a while, he still wants to feel that edge. He still wants to, visit that, and he'll go and take it. Before you realize, he's become addicted to it. Now there's no rationalization for taking it, but he's already in there. He can't come out. And that's when we have addiction. So that aspect of it is very key. And when you bring ethics into it, this is a very, philosophical conversation. And people may not understand some of it. But the thing is that, do people have, philosophers tell us, do people have justification for self-harm? So when you understand that whole question, philosophers have not been, there are a lot of disagreements on if people have justifications for self-harm, or is self-harm justified, when and how. So you may, and the thing is that you think it is harm, but what you see as harm may not be harm to me. You are not in my situation to feel what I'm feeling. And as the master of my own life, you are in no position to dictate to me what is harm to me. As long as I feel good about myself, because they say it's a fleeting desire. You live only once and you can die at any time. So for me, rationally, what makes sense for me is to live how do you even make that statement?
Live to my fullest.
You live as you go. All right. You perhaps are thinking about the future, having kids and all that. Someone wants to be happy today. And that's why they call some of the drugs ecstasy. They always have the good names for those drugs because it speaks to people. You see, it speaks to people. And so ethically, it is very difficult. You can rationalize it and put it in a perspective in terms of ethics outside of it. One, for the benefit of society, which is very important, like Plato will argue, for society, we can talk about the pros and cons. We put it in context that we live in a society, and any man who is not fit to live in that polity is either a beast or a god. And so what is good for that polity or that society should necessarily reflect the overarching idea of what is good for all of us. So if the society, we come to understand that taking drugs is bad in the sense that it can lead you to committing crimes, it can lead you to ending your life or ending someone's life, which is another crime, or even become a societal menace in the sense that you are not productive to the society, which is a crime against the society. So you can ethically rationalize it and say that, one, you can commit crime, you can end your life, and even if you don't do these things, by damaging your life, you have become a liability to the society that you live in, and therefore you are committing a crime against the society. So ethically, it's off. For me personally, it is not something we should encourage. And I also believe in that school of thought that you are committing a crime against society in the sense that you've rendered yourself useless, You cannot productively contribute to the societal good of all of us. And so for that matter, it is not something we should encourage, and for something we should stay off.
Wow. Interesting. So I mean, when it comes to ethics and biases, like the issue of ethics and biases are always so complicated that it's really difficult to,
Very.
analyze. Very, very difficult to analyze, very difficult to disintegrate and just really pinpoint the exact, position to take or the exact position to but just a follow-up question. Where do you think the problem is coming from, right? So we've established, it could be, you know, as a matter of ethics and also understanding that you, the user, I mean, for the user becomes a misfit for society and, not fit for purpose and all that. But in the documentary that was released, you realize that these drugs were being imported illegally into the countries.
Into the country.
And I think two countries, Ghana and Nigeria, right? One, where is this coming from? Is it a failure of the agencies responsible for border control, or where do you think this is coming from? Or individuals have just been smart enough to,
No,
outmaneuver.
no, 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 no. You see, drug business has always been a lucrative business. There are very powerful people who are in charge of this. If you look at the documentary and you read further on those things, for the purpose of this conversation, I will not name names, but there's a powerful pharmaceutical company in Ghana that is importing these drugs into the country. The name is out there, but for the purpose of this conversation, I will not.
Yeah.
There's a powerful pharmaceutical company which is importing these drugs into the country. So one, he's aware that the FDA even released a statement saying that all those drugs are not just illegal, but they are banned in the country. Selling it is illegal, importing is illegal. So this person is importing it illegally, selling it illegally, distributing it. You get it? So one, the FDA says that these drugs are illegal. They are banned in the country. The sale of it is banned. And this company is importing it into the country freely. If you check the logs at the Ports and Harbor, it is there. There's a paper trail of evidence of the amounts this company is importing into the country. And even the distributing, outlets are all there. Now, one, you asked, is it a failure of the people in power or what? The thing is that, when you fight crime, it fights you back.
Yeah.
And because we have these powerful people who have interest, can you imagine that entity in Ghana is so powerful that when Nigeria shut down their, import because of those things, the Nigerians are now buying it from us, from Ghana and Burkina Faso. So Ghana has become a distribution center for this opioid. They know this company, they know those who are selling it, but they are not doing anything about it. The FDA came out to say that the drugs are banned. So what? Everyone knows they are banned. You get it? The customs at the border, they need to answer serious questions. There must be thorough investigation into it. How on earth are you aware of these drugs and you are clearing it for people to take? So we have a system failure in the sense that people are deliberately colluding with these entities to spread these menace in our society, which is very bad. Because if you look at the damage it's doing, especially currently in Tamale, it is alarming. You can be walking and see a young man walking. You don't know if he's sleeping. He doesn't know where he is. Someone is just lying somewhere on the road. He's high and he's sleeping. I had never seen this, only in movies. But currently it is rampant on the streets of Tamale where you see this. In Yendi, someone can even go to openly defecate and end up sleeping there. And there are videos to these things. There was a task force that was formed to combat some of these things. People were fighting the task force. And so you can also look at it, where are the ethics? Who is in charge of that ethical society that we, we want to live in? So for me personally, I think people are just wicked. Even if you watch the person says that these drugs are dangerous. It can be injurious to your health. But he said that this is business.
Yes.
So people are profiting off the backs of young, fruitful people who shall be the future leaders of this country. They are dying in their numbers. They are becoming misfits for the society. In fact, currently, I even felt sad because one of the artists, a former, I don't know if I should call him a former artist, he got, involved in these drug issues, and he came back, through rehabilitation. He was getting better, and finally he relapsed again, and it's very sad. Just a month ago, he made a post about, very suicidal post.
Yeah.
He could kill himself. It is very sad, honestly. So I think it's a failure of leadership. There's no accountability. The people in charge are just wicked devils who want to kill the young people, because you cannot be profiting at the back of the future generation of this country.
Final thought, just briefly. There is this philosopher. I can't remember the name exactly, right? But I'm coming from the business realm here, right? As a business, the sole aim of a business is to generate profit, right? We all agree that, I mean, again, this has also been polarized, where we have people who say that no, the sole aim of a business should be to profit society. But other group of thought also believe that no, it should be to the business, then society can come later, right? So from the business perspective, right, it's always viewed that profit comes first, then you can look at the societal good, right? As a philosopher, what do you think of that thinking, or those two school of thoughts?
Wow, this is a difficult question. But you see, the point is that if you look at history, I'm also a student of history, not just philosophy and thinking.
Okay.
If you have to look at the genesis of what we call business today.
Okay.
The whole essence of buying and selling, the essence of transaction. The purpose of buying and selling, which is business, was not for profit. That is something that is completely different from, profit today. Now that they define it in accounting terms as, now you have to separate the one you used to buy, your operational cost, and whatever is left is your profit and that kind of thing.
That's profit.
Profit, that is not profit. Profit in the original sense of business transaction was for that which is beneficial to you. That is profit. So I have this, I need this, and you have it, and I give it to you, and you give me this. This is a profit to me. It is profiting me. It is useful to me. That is the profit of this transaction. That was the genesis of the whole transaction. Give me this, the barter trade. We did not have medium of exchange. The whole concept and the real definition of profit came when we started having means of transaction, or the things, the exchange that we use. Instead of goods for goods, we're using a third item to determine what is the value of this. Even though if I don't have this and I need this, even the things I have are useless. I need to find a currency to be able to get that which will profit me. So you cannot separate that which benefits society from business. The concept of profit always comes first is a new thing in society and business, championed by corporations that are not in any way, interested in what benefits society, but what benefits themselves. There's a lot of literature on these kinds of people. They have always been there since the beginning of time. But the point is that if you look at the what is the name? The profit aspect of it. Let's say I'm selling, you are buying, I need to make profit. And so whether it is benefiting you or benefiting society, I don't care. Let's not forget that the business environment, whether it is profit oriented or it is a social enterprise that is so core, benefiting society, is regulated by law. And that which is not in tandem with the law is a crime, and for that matter, it does not benefit society. And so, irrespective of whether you want profit or you care about society, it should operate within the confines of the law. And also, finally, the issue of this, people forget that they say it by mouth. You see, it is not practical. These same people, when you have a business proposal, they want to ask you what is the benefit it has for society. They even ask you what problem is your business solving? What problem is your business solving? So that should tell you the genesis of business. It is not to make profit, but to solve a problem. I have this, and I don't need it, and you need it. You have a problem, and I give it to you and collect this. It has solved your problem. So we have to move away from this. We are in the 21st century where business takes, precedence over anything, ethics and, rule of law and everything. The people now make the rules. And so they determine what is ethical and what is not ethical. And so that is the end of the conversation, because if you have people who determine what is ethical and what is not ethical, and I'll end by this issue of Elon Musk and his uncovering so-called fraud in the bureaucracy in the US. Basically, if you look at what he's doing, whatever thing that he doesn't agree with, he calls it fraud. So in the grand scheme of things, the expenditures he's calling fraud and unnecessary were debated by what? Congressmen and women who sat and signed these things to spend those monies. And unelected official thinks that these are fraudulent because he doesn't agree you should spend money here, and money here. So where lies the rule of law and the ethics of who determines what is beneficial for the society and what not? At what point and who should do that?
Interesting conversations. I think we have spoken more than we usually do. So
Right.
I'm gonna have to invite you again for a special conversation on just this whole politics, the whole Western politics conversation, and then we can juxtapose that against what we have back home, right? And I think
Definitely.
back door would have that conversation. But for this particular conversation, I've really enjoyed this conversation. I have no doubt, I have not an iota of doubt that whoever is listening would benefit immensely from this session that we've had. And for that, I want to say thank you so much for taking time and for the insights you have shared, the wisdom you have shared, and the experiences you've also, shared on this platform, not just for me, but also to everyone who might have the opportunity to listen to this episode. Man, I'm just so happy that we could have this discussion. And
Thank you very much for having me and inviting me. I'm grateful.
yeah, sure. If you have any final words to say, you can say it, and then we just shoot out.
Well, the final thing I would say is that I'm wishing all young people around the world success. I know the world is hard, it's a difficult place. You are the only player, you are the only coach, you are the only substitute. You are not going to get help from anywhere. You are the one playing, you are the one coaching yourself. When you're tired, rest and continue. The world will not wait for you.
Wow. There's a lot of conversations we can actually have, like that's so like it's crazy, like you just I also know how passionate you are about, young men and growing up and how underprivileged they have become, and these are conversations that I look forward to having with you in the future, also about politics,
Inshallah.
about religion, I had a recent conversation on religion, and honestly, I would like different perspectives on that, which I would engage you on very soon. So man, I'm super grateful for you taking the time, and I wish you a happy Ramadan.
Ramadan Mubarak. And hopefully, if I come to the US, we can have an in-person sessions.
Oh my goodness.
That will be
I love
hopefully
it, man.
maybe by the end of the year, or by 2026, inshallah.
I would appreciate it, man. Inshallah. I would appreciate it, man. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, man.
Enjoy, bro.
All right, bro. You too. Bye.